We begin by watching the end of one of the plays of the drama club of the high school where our protagonist Buntaro studies. He is a boy with a very hectic daily routine, since he studies and works in a Japanese food restaurant, where he is in charge of a little bit of everything. At the end of the day we meet his friend Yuka Kobayakawa, with whom Bunta has a conversation on the terrace, and we notice the difference between their ways of thinking. Yuka is a dreamy girl who is very clear about what she wants to be in life, while Buntaro is not at all clear about his future, even though he will soon have to make the decision to apply to a university. The next day Bunta arrives at the classroom and notices that a couple of girls are having an argument because they can't sort out some important papers for the student's application. Buntaro notices the conflict and offers to help them, and we can see that he has great abilities to take on the missing role within the drama club, that of a leader. This is when Sayuki Kuroda, the president of the literature club, steps in. She notices in Buntaro his leadership abilities and approaches him in the Chicho's bathroom with an intriguing proposal. So the two agree to meet the next day at 1 o'clock in a popular park in their town. Buntaro doesn't know what to do, as Kuroda-san is the most popular girl in school and he has no idea why on earth she would want to ask him out. So he decides to tell his friend Yuka, and they both speculate about what might happen on that date. However, the cute girl's intentions were very different. Sayuki asks Buntaro to join the literature club and persuades him to help her in a special project, creating a bishojo game. Although Buntaro is initially hesitant and shows little inclination toward the idea, Sayuki's insistence and enthusiasm finally persuade him to participate. Now that she has Buntaro's attention, Kuroda-san devotes all her time and dedication to making him become an expert on bishojo games. It is essential for her that Bunta learns all about them so that he will be able to come up with the best story and plot for his game. To this end, Kuroda-san decides to reveal a secret to him. He takes Buntaro to a meeting room and welcomes her to the Marketing Research Club, of which she is the president. However, the secret was that the said club was just a front, as it was actually the Bishojo Games Club. However, the said club had only 2 people, which were the 2 of them, so Sayuki comments to Bunta that he should be in charge of both creating the plot for the game and recruiting the other members of the club, as the 2 of them were not going to be able to pull off the project without help. Sayuki explains to him that they will also need a writer, a duce, a director, a CGA expert, an editor, a programmer, and a seiyu. Bunta doesn't know what to say as he doesn't feel able to do what Sayuki asks him to do, but her imposing and determined character simply prevented him from refusing any request. Moreover, Sayuki tells him that in her family they already know about this business, as her brother was the creator of a successful bishojo game. This confession makes the relationship between the two grow even closer, as Bunta feels a great empathy towards Kuroda-san, which makes him feel more and more attracted to her. So he decides to take on the responsibility of assembling the team they needed to move forward. Later at home, Buntaro begins to get frustrated because he doesn't quite understand how these bishojo games work. However, he comes up with an idea to start recruiting people, and within a couple of hours he gets several people interested in joining the club. However, when Sayuki meets them the next morning at the school, she is very disappointed by Buntaro's poor judgment in choosing the talents. So they go to the Bishojo Games Club room again, and only a few minutes later Yuka and Adamu, Bunta's childhood friends, show up. The good connection they both had with Sayuki makes Bunta come up with the idea of asking Yuka to be the one to perform the role as the seiyu of the game. Since being part of the drama club, she could perform any kind of voice. At first, Kuroda-san hesitates, but decides to accept her as a new member of the team. Adamu turns out to have a great connection with Sayuki, so despite not having any special talents that would allow her to take a position in the project. To take a position in the project, he becomes the director's assistant. Thus, the Bishojo Game Club gets its first members. To continue with the project, Sayuki decides to take the team on a trip so that they can continue to interact with the bishojo game industry. The idea was a success as Bunta began to feel more and more attracted to the games and to have more and more inspiration to find new allies for the project. And it is this that allows him to find Yugasu Yuki, a very talented cartoonist that they want to join their team. However, it is not at all easy for Bunta and his friends to get Yuki, as she is an overly shy girl who runs away every time they try to talk to her. Luckily, they get help from Anto, an otaku girl who decides to wait for Yuki in the girls' bathroom to ask her to join Buntaro's team, finally accepting the invitation and thus becoming the 5th member of the team, and Anto the 6th. Sayuki decides to prepare a new journey for the club members to continue learning more about the world of bishojo games, and assigns a new mission to Buntaro, the creation of a plot. The game needs a main event around which all or most of the events revolve, and Bunta as a scriptwriter is tasked with the responsibility of doing so. To do so, Sayuki recommends him to interact with the different team members for inspiration. Bunta goes with Kuroda-san for a walk during which they decide on some important points that the team will have to define in the next group meeting they have. However, during that meeting, Kuroda-san can't get all the team members to understand his message, and decides to end the meeting so that everyone can go to dinner. During dinner, Anto arrives, who had been delayed a couple of hours and had missed the meeting because she was at a party, which does not please Sayuki at all. And we can see that a rivalry and the first signs of friction start between the two of them, as they both have a dominant personality. After lunch, Bunta decides to ask each of the club members about what they would like the plot of the game to be. But only Yuka told him something that caught his attention: that the plot revolves around a romance. Later, during a new meeting of the whole team, Sayuki explains to them in detail the roadmap he has planned to make the game a master-up in just 6 months. Anto doesn't think that's possible, but Kuroda-san reveals more details and explains that the game they will create will be a low-budget game, which will be released at a low price and will be a shorter game than other successful and more expensive games on the market. To do this, he will use a partner branding agreement he has secured with a major video game distribution company in Japan. However, the tension between Anto and Sayuki comes to a head, and after an argument over who should be the team leader, Anto ends up abandoning the trip and the project as he did not agree with Kuroda-san's way of proceeding. This makes Buntaro have to mediate between the two to settle their differences. Anto decided to return to the team as she realized that she actually liked the project more than she knew. After overcoming this first big team crisis, everyone became more united than ever, and so they decided to name the club. This is how the 6 together now christened themselves as Rokuhara. Bunta is in the club room for another day. At that, Sayuki tells him that it is an oversight as he forgot to order the materials for the backgrounds and music. This was a problem as he can only get the materials once the scenes in the plot are written. So Kuroda asks Bunta to write down each material he needs for each scene, to which the latter says okay. Buntaro discovers at what point he is having trouble writing, as he could not make any progress. But Kuroda tells him it's better to keep it simple, so he recommends writing a short, restrained story. But in the end, Bunta, possessed with inspiration in 5 days, went from having 5 simple lines to having the whole plot completed. Bunta anxiously waits for his classmates to read the plot he wrote to ask them what they thought of it. But when they finish reading, almost all of them tell him more or less the same thing: that his plot is somewhat ordinary. At first he wasn't happy with this, but Kuroda tells him not to worry and that his project is to produce a low-cost, video game romantic comedy. So, the buyers want it to be little good while. Yuki. When I finished reading the plot, she hadn't said anything to the protagonist, and she has a fit of imagination and started drawing. And when she finished, she shows Bunta the drawing she made. The latter was delighted with the drawing, as he tells him that it is incredible. When he got out of school, He was very thoughtful and went to the restaurant where he used to work after school. He decides to tell his boss that he wants to take some time off. He did this to focus more on creating the game. Later, Kuroda took Bunta to meet someone who is also a writer to see if this helps at all, because the writer tells him that he will reveal to him the secret of this art, and tells him that the most important thing is to never set a deadline. But this doesn't do Bunta much good. So the writer asks him what exactly does he want. To which Bunta tells him that he wants a tip or a trick for writing a screenplay. But the writer tells him that he just has to write and that's it. That he goes on and on writing even though he's stuck. And that writing a plot has no tricks, as it builds itself bit by bit. In the end, talking to the writer helped Buntaro a lot, as he decided to keep writing even though he is stuck, and out of nowhere the protagonist got inspiration. So he rushed out to go home to write, and the next day, he showed his classmates what he wrote, and had a better acceptance by everyone. As for his part, Kuroda told him that he is better than before. Yuki told him that it feels like they have color. Anyway, they liked it. All this made Bunta very happy, and Yuki again surprised everyone with her art, as she made several drawings there. Yuki was trying very hard and started working non-stop until she had a block that didn't allow her to draw anymore, and the exhaustion reached such a high point that she faints and ends up with Bunta and the others taking care of her in the emergency room. Kuroda tells Bunta to cut some scenes from her script, as this way the graphics would be reduced and Yuki wouldn't have to draw so much, but she was listening to everything, and with the little strength she had she tells them not to reduce it. But in the end they end up convincing Yuki, as Bunta tells her that she will do a story that brings out the best of her art, and luckily she recovered and was able to return to the team. Our little group went to buy things to celebrate Yuki's return. When they come back they find Kuroda humming a tune, and luckily it occurred to them to record it. They like the tune Kuroda was humming so much that they decide to add it as part of the game's soundtrack. The group has come a long way, and Anto says that they already have everything they need, so he will put a lot of effort into it. He shows them what he has advanced and asks Bunta what he thinks of it, but he finds it strange that there are things in his script that are changed. But this is because Anto changed some things, although he only says that he fixed some spelling mistakes and some sentences. This upsets Kuroda, and he tells Anto that no one can change things in the script, and forbids him to make decisions without his permission. Later, Bunta was leaving for home, but as Yuki wanted to tell him something, he followed him and told him that Anto had not only changed things in the script, but also some drawings she had done. The next day, Bunta went to ask Anto about the fact that he changed some drawings that he wanted. And at that, the other members of the group arrived, and Kuroda also started to complain to Anto that she was changing many things, but they still hadn't seen any of her work, and she tells them that she is late, which makes Kuroda-san very angry, and in the end Anto ends up leaving the project again. This takes Sayuki by surprise, as Anto was the only programmer. The group tries to go to her house to see if they can convince her to come back, and she wasn't there. But Anto's mother tells them that she is no longer there because she has gone to work at sea, as her family are fishermen, but that they won't be able to get close to her for a while. However, Bunta manages to find a job in the same place where Anto was, and at the end of a long working day he manages to talk to her and convinces her to return to the team again. After convincing Anto, the day of Playa arrives, where the team is having fun as a family. Arriving at the place where they are staying, Bunta gets ready to continue with the script, but Kuroda shows up in sexy pajamas and thanks her for getting Anto to come back again, but also asks her what she thought of the girls' swimsuits today. Girls' swimsuits today at the beach, as he wants him to put all those ideas into the script. And to end this great day, the fireworks can't be missing. The next morning, Yuka notices that Bunta has left his laptop lying around, so she goes to look for him on the beach to let him know. At that moment, they both start talking about when they were little and went to the beach, since they were childhood friends, to which Bunta tells her that of course he remembers. Then Kuroda arrives with Bunta's laptop and lectures him not to leave his stuff lying around, but also tells him that he really likes what he has written, and that he has made a lot of progress, and takes the opportunity to ask him if he had already thought anything about what he asked him the other day, and Bunta tells him not yet, to which Yuka asks what they mean and Bunta tells her it's nothing, which makes Yuka very upset and runs off. Later, the group is returning from the trip and as usual, Anto and Kuroda get into an argument, but it's something they're all getting used to by now. Upon arriving at the club, Bunta is going through yet another creative block and can't continue drafting a key part of the script. Kuroda asks him what exactly is the part that is giving him trouble, and he tells him it's the part where the main character is on the date with the girl and the girl has to make an important confession to him. So Bunta sets about asking the other team members for inspiration. Anto tells Bunta that if he can't write something like this, it's because he has simply never been on a real date with a girl. However, he wasn't the only one since except for Anto. No one else in the group had had any previous love experience. So Bunta starts asking people close to his close circle, and even asks a teacher, but no one knows how to answer him with something that will inspire him. Luckily, he had saved the number of the writer who helped him the first time, and he asks him for advice on how to overcome this blockage. The writer tells him that it's good to want to be realistic in stories, but in the end it's imagination that gets the most attention, so he tells Bunta not to be afraid to say anything, even his deepest desires, and put them into the script. This helps Bunta a lot, but what he writes during the night does not please his classmates at all as they find it too inappropriate. So they all agree that they will help Bunta get more inspiration by putting them in different situations. They try everything but nothing they do helps Bunta overcome his block. Finally, he agrees to go on a date with Yuka as his last option. They were going to go to a restaurant, but when they arrive they realize that Bunta's writer friend is there, and he prefers not to go in. So they have a nice outing where they eat ice cream and end up sitting in the park talking about anything. At that moment, Yuka tells Bunta that she loves him, and he doesn't quite understand what she means, but she wants to tell him something else at that moment, but she doesn't because she feels embarrassed, and tells Bunta that she will tell him when she manages to finish the game. Bunta fell asleep in his room, and still hadn't written anything new for the project, so he gets a call from Kuroda, who tells him that he should be prepared to be kidnapped, as he is way behind on work and is going to go and keep an eye on him so that he can concentrate 100% on working. And in a second Kuroda was at Bunta's house along with the whole team. Bunta does not agree with the drastic measure proposed by his colleagues, but they do not listen to him, and seal all the exits of his own house so that he is only in his room writing. But our protagonist did not like Kuroda's plan at all, so he tries to escape from his own house by jumping out the window, but it is useless because his room was on the second floor and the fall was very high. Plus the team members realize and also say in him that window. At this point Buntaro was trapped, but this instead of helping him actually only frustrated him, since he could not write anything productive and simply wrote a couple of paragraphs and erased them, so without stopping until he got tired and decided to take a short break. In order not to fall asleep, he set an alarm, but when it went off, he himself turned it off unconsciously and almost automatically, so when he woke up it was already very late. But Bunta was not the only one who had fallen asleep. The truth is that the rest of the team also fell asleep, and that's why nobody woke him up. So they have a brief meeting to look for ways to help the protagonist. But again, there is no humanly possible way for Bunta to get out of his blockade, so again he tries to escape. But he can't do it since all the exits are 100% blocked. But that new escape attempt made the group increasingly strict in their vigilance. However, Yuka realizes that this drastic method is not getting any results, so she raises her voice to let Bunta take a shower and have his space. So Bunta goes to take a shower, but he was so tired that he ends up sleeping for another long time. The team didn't know what to do because if Bunta wasn't able to finish the script, then the project would be delayed. But Bunta wasn't going to leave his team vulnerable, so out of nowhere he wakes up and promises everyone that he's going to finish the script tonight. So he gets to work, turns on his laptop and writes non-stop for hours. The next morning, Kuroda goes to his room to check on Bunta and finds him asleep at his desk, but manages to see on his laptop that he had finished the script. Everyone is very happy because Bunta was able to finish the script and the story is a success. Bunta thinks her work is done, but Kuroda tells her that he still needs her to do some things for her, such as writing a light novel about the game's story, which she must do in a span of just 3 days. A new day at the Bishojo's game club, which has a lot of work ahead of it. Kuroda hands Yuka the script for her character, and tells her that she should go practice the voices because they will soon have to record the demo, so she should be prepared. In the afternoon, the team heads to the recording studio. They thought it would be quick, but one girl takes up to an hour to record some vocals, and when she finally finishes, it's Yuka's turn. She makes a first attempt and the producer tells her that it's fine, but there are some parts she can improve. Then Yuka asks him to make another attempt and everything comes out excellent. However, she is very perfectionist and asks to re-record her part because she feels she can do it much better. But instead of improving, Yuka starts making a lot of mistakes, which causes her to have to make more attempts and she doesn't end up advancing to the final part of the script. So Kuroda tells her that she has to continue with the next part since her first attempts were very good and there are already approved recordings, but she has to finish with the last part of the script in order to advance. Yuka decides to continue and listen to Kuroda, but when she finishes, she leaves completely upset. The next day, Yuka does not attend the game club, and Kuroda gets a call that they should go to the studio again as some mistakes occurred during the recording that can only be fixed by replaying the recordings. However, Yuka is still upset and does not want to remain on the team, and in fact does not want to talk to anyone about it. This situation worries Kuroda as time is pressing and if they can't count on Yuka, they will have to look for a new dubbing actress. But Bunta tells him not to worry, and at the end of the afternoon he looks for Yuka to talk to her, but when he finally finds her, she runs off in a panic, causing Bunta to chase after her until he reaches a park. Yuka opens up to Bunta and tells him that she was disappointed because she had promised Bunta that she was going to put her heart and soul into interpreting his script, but because of time constraints she had done a mediocre job. But Bunta tells her that this is not true, that everyone had really liked her work, but she replies that being good is not good enough for her. However, Bunta finally manages to convince her, and the next day they go to record the other part of the script in order to deliver the demo of the game on time. The team has managed to publish their demo despite all the setbacks they have had. Now they are anxious to know in detail what people are saying on social media about their game, so they start researching on Twitter and find out that the game has been very well received, with many positive comments about Yuki's drawing, Yuka's voice and the story written by Bunta. All this gives the team a lot of motivation, but Kuroda tells them that they shouldn't be confident with those reviews, as usually new games from new developers were received with very good reviews because that's how the industry works, but that to get real opinions they had to finish the game to the end, as they had barely completed a simple demo. So the guys are more motivated than ever to get the game out in its final version. However, Adamu discovers a game that had also released a demo the same day as theirs, and they decide to try it out to see how it has been, and realize that the level of this game was far superior to what they had done with theirs. So they realized that if that game had been of the same genre as theirs, the reviews they would receive would not be as good with such a competitor. However, the talent of our team does not go unnoticed, and the writer of the bishojo game they had recently tested would write to Kuroda to show special interest in Buntaro. So she gets the two of them to meet, and the chemistry between the two was instantaneous. So much so that Bunta decides to invite the first writer he met who helped him overcome his creative blocks. In the end, Bunta agrees with his new friend that they will have a meeting between members of both video game development teams, and so it happens. They meet, and the first to arrive is the CEO of the other games group named Teiko, who is also a cartoonist, and she approaches Yuki and tells him that she is an excellent cartoonist and that she has been following his art at Pixis for a long time. Teiko gets straight to the point and tells them that he is very interested in recruiting Buntaro, Yuki, Anto and Kuroda to join his development group, but the deal did not include Yuka and Adamu. This made Buntaro very angry, who has a loud argument with Teiko and ends up even throwing water on him. Teiko gets very upset and almost hits Bunta, but in the end he calms down and challenges them to a sales competition in which the winner would be the one who sold the most copies of his game, and the loser would have to work for the winning team and would have to give up a member of the team without the option to refuse. At first Kuroda doesn't want to, but Teiko threatens to tarnish their careers in the industry, and in the end they decide to do it. Whoever manages to sell the most copies of their game in one day will win the competition, and Teiko tells them that if she wins she will force Buntaro to work for her as a slave. He will work so hard that he won't even have time to study. The competition brings the team closer together than ever to win the competition, and everyone was working very hard to make the best game possible. While the group is working, Kuroda goes out to do some shopping, and while he is gone, his brother visits the other team members, and thanks them for developing a game to help him pay off his debt. The boys don't understand what he means, and he tells them that their company hadn't been releasing good games for a while, which had caused them to lose a lot of money and the banks had taken away their financing. So Kuroda came up with the idea of using a group of young people to create a successful game. When Kuroda returns to the club and sees her brother, she is very surprised, and after he leaves, the club members tell her that they are very upset, as they feel that they were used by her to achieve their goal. So all the team members decide to abandon the game project because of Kuroda's lack of transparency with them. They felt betrayed. The only one who stays is Bunta, but when she tries to give him explanations, he can't stand the situation and decides to abandon it too. Our protagonist had to return to his old job, but inside him, something has changed since he left the Bishojo game club, but he wasn't the only one. He meets with Yuka and she explains to him that she misses the team, as she actually had a lot of fun while they were creating the game, and she felt very attached to the whole team. But the rest of the team also felt that way, so inside they were eager to return to the club. In the evening, Bunta gets a call from the Teiko writer, telling her that the game has been finished, and that they had 2 weeks to finish theirs and make the release of both games on the same day. Bunta then decides to go to the Bishojo Game Club hall, and when he arrives there is Kuroda alone working on trying to finish the game. She sees him and tells him that she is very sorry, but Bunta is not alone and arrives with the other members of the team, and they are all ready to finish the game. So they all get down to work and work for several days until they finally manage to finish the game, or so they thought, because Yuki realizes that most of the drawings were uploaded with a bad resolution, and that they will have to upload them again or else the game will have errors. But Anto tells him that it's impossible for them to change that at this point, because in less than 24 hours they have to ship the game. Yuki feels very bad about her carelessness, but Kuroda gives the order for Anto to make the changes since she will be in charge of going to deliver the game in person if necessary. So the team gets down to work and manages to fix all the bugs in the game. So Bunta rushes off to the train station where Kuroda is waiting for him to deliver the disc with the final version of the game. The day has come for the release of the Bishojo game that our team of talented young people had created. This was also the day of the competition between the two games that would decide the fate of the team, as Teiko still wanted Bunta, Kuroda, Yuki and Anto to join his company. The day of the launch goes smoothly, and the next day Kuroda summons them all to the game club lounge to give them good news. The game managed to sell the initial 3,000 copies in a very short time, so they wanted to buy more copies from the team as soon as possible. Copies as soon as possible. However, the other game group was not far behind, and also sold all their copies, which numbered over 4,000. The team was devastated to hear this, as they thought they had lost. But the reality is that in the competition they also counted the replay requests that each game got, and in that sense those of our protagonists were requests for more than 6,000 new copies, while those of the other game barely reached 2,000. So Rokujara had been the winner of the competition, so they go to celebrate their success in a luxurious restaurant, where coincidentally also works Kuroda's brother, who when he sees him asks him why he is working in that place. They leave the restaurant and have a nice walk during the evening, and Kuroda tells the team that he is going to disband the club, but to form a new one in which they create a new game from scratch but for themselves. Buntaro disagrees with that, as he says that now that he has gotten his first master-up game, he wants to make a new but more ambitious game, which is also the wish of the whole group. The next day, Bunta is at school and has to make the decision to fill out the application letter for college. However, he is still hesitant about his choice, but after thinking about it he fills out the letter and continues his day as normal. Later in the evening, the team is invited to a game developers event, where everyone is very satisfied with their contribution to the game project and they are looking forward to start a new challenge. At that it starts to snow and the story ends with all the protagonists looking at the sky.